Bibby coming through Canyon Iceberg with Ian Bibby. Ian Bibby looks like it's going to take the first ever KISS Super League Pro race.
Hello everyone, welcome along. Now today we're going to be talking about cycling as an esport. Last week saw the launch of the KISS Super League. We're going to get into it, see what it's all about, and whether or not we think cycling as an esport is the future. Let's get into it. Okay, now what is the KISS Super League? Well, the KISS Super League is the first ever dedicated pro cycling esports competition. So what that means is that it's the first ever esports league in cycling with professional teams competing. So this is the first year that it's taking place. There are 15 professional teams in total taking part. There are 9 continental teams, 4 pro conti teams, which is the level above continental teams. And then there are also 2 Zwift community teams. One team is called the Zwift All-Stars, and they're made up of the best Zwifters from around the world. And the other team is called the Zwift Academy Dream Team, and they're made up of semi-finalists from Zwift's very popular Academy program, where they seek out riders on Zwift, and then the winner of that competition gets a pro contract with a pro cycling team. How cool is that? Now the format is quite simple. There are 10 rounds of racing for this first season. Each taking place on Wednesday at 7 p.m. GMT, and every round is going to be streamed on Zwift. How does it work? Well, it's a team-based competition, so what matters is accumulating points for your team rather than the individual performances so much. Now, as you can imagine, the KISS Super League takes place on Zwift, the only platform really offering this kind of thing at the moment. The first round took place last week at a launch event in London where Team Wiggins were racing live, and here's what happened. Welcome along to the first round of the KISS Super League, the inaugural KISS Super League. The first round is taking place in Watopia. The course is the Volcano Climb After Party. So that's 2 laps of the Volcano Flat circuit, if you're familiar with Watopia, finishing up the famous Corkscrew Climb. Now, the racing got off to a pretty frantic start, as you might expect. This is all new, brand new concept and format. Remember, there are 15 teams taking part, 4 Pro Conti teams, 9 Continental teams, and 2 Zwift Community and All-Star teams. So early on then, the first significant attack of the day came from Israel Cycling Academy's newest recruit, Connor Dunn, 6'8", an absolute beast of a man who thought he would test the water with this cheeky attack. Unfortunately for Connor, it didn't last long, however, as he was soon reeled in by the chasing group. Now, this year on Zwift, they introduced the concept of double drafting, which basically increases the drafting effect and makes it more akin to real life racing, whereas previously the drafting effect wasn't as pronounced. What does that mean in practice? Well, it means it's more difficult for solo breaks to stick, as the chasing group can work together more effectively, with real energy to be conserved sitting in the wheels. But at the same time, it also means if a group of riders is able to form a break, it's got a much better chance of sticking, as you can get some real recovery in when you're not taking a turn. So, more like real life racing, that's the idea. Now, with 30 kilometres of racing done, Madison Genesis really started to take control of proceedings, with British national champion Connor Swift ably assisted by Tom Moses, John Mould, and the man everyone had their eye on, Ian Bibby. Swift would end up averaging an enormous 419 watts for his 50-minute outing, an average of 5.5 watts per kilo, largely thanks to a number of enormous Thomas de Gent-style pulls on the front. By the time the race reached the start of the Volcano Climb, the famous corkscrew climb up the side of a giant volcano, the front group consisted of around 20 riders, dominated by the omnipresent turquoise, I reckon it's turquoise, red and black kit of the Madison Genesis riders. This was always going to be the business end of proceedings, and while the climb only averages 3.2%, the 3.8 kilometres and inevitable jostling for position was sure to blow the race wide open. Or was it? Mould, Bibby and Moses continued to control things on the front, and things were yet to really hot up. That was short-lived though, as the riders passed the Flamme Rouge and the watts started to noticeably increase. With 300 metres left to race, Moses saw his name up in lights and attacked. But was it too early for the 26-year-old? Yes it was. A chasing group of 3, including all-star rider Mathieu Joujon and Ian Bibby each deployed their aero boost. Very smart move, guys. And it was the pre-race favourite Bibby who powered his way past Moses and over the line to take the win, with all-stars Juron and Justin Purificati taking the other podium spots. How cool is that, guys? It's not all about the pros. So after round one, here are the team standings. Madison Genesis lead the way on 52 points, and then very impressively in second place, Zwift All-Stars on 49. So that was round one of the KISS Super League done. What did you think? Did you watch it? Where did you watch it? Will you be watching it in future? That's the $1 million question. Now, a couple of interesting things that I want to pick out about the race. So Ian Bibby, Madison Genesis rider, obviously won the race with that monster sprint up the top of the volcano climb at the end there. Now, what was super interesting was, if you look at second and third placed riders, they were both riders from the Zwift All-Star team. Now, if you look at their average watts per kilo during the race, it's quite significantly lower than most of the other top 20, 30 riders. The second place rider, who was from the Zwift All-Star team, Mathieu Drujon, I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry, Mathieu, if it's not. Now, Mathieu ended up averaging 4.6 watts per kilo, which is quite a lot lower than the rest of the top 20 or 30 riders, as I said. What this shows, and this is the thing that I think is super interesting about racing on Zwift and the concept of cycling as an e-sport, what it shows is that e-racing is not all about raw power. So it's not necessarily going to be the guy who has the biggest engine who's going to win every race, which you might think would be the case, bearing in mind there's no bike handling, so there's a few less variables to think about. So you might think it's just raw power, but no, it's not. Now this is exciting, and what it shows you, I guess, from the Zwift All-Star teams is that they know how to race on Zwift, because it's different to racing outside in a crit race. In a typical crit race, it's different. And here's how. Because you need to know, first of all, it's super helpful if you know the course. If you know the course, you know where the ramps are, you know when people are going to attack, you know when it starts getting tough. And here's the super interesting bit about racing on Zwift, and which these guys know a lot more than some of the pros who aren't as experienced on Zwift yet. It's about all of the gamification, if you like, aspects of racing on Zwift. So drafting, obviously super important in real life, but super important in Zwift as well. And not a lot of people fully grasp just how much energy you can be saving if you're getting a good draft on Zwift. And that's about positioning yourself correctly in the pack. Now, power-ups. If you don't know what power-ups are tokens that you pick up as you race on Zwift. And it's really important to know what they are and when to use them. So there are three principal power-ups. The first is the aero boost. Now this is going to make you more aerodynamic. So this is what you want to use, let's say when you're out on your own, you're in a break on your own, you're trying to attack and you just want to get away. You want to gap some people. Second of all, you've got the lightweight or the feather boost. Now, as you might imagine, this makes you lighter. This is good, particularly when you're going uphill, for example. And finally, you have the drafting boost. So this obviously increases the draft effect that you are feeling, meaning you can do less work when you're sitting on a few wheels. So these were really important, and Ian Bibby showed how important these were at the end of the race. He's obviously a seasoned Zwifter, and what he did, he held his aero boost in reserve until the final sprint to the line up the volcano climb. And that just gave him that little bit extra just to lose the wheels behind him and power on through to the line and take the win. So it's about knowing how to use those aspects of Zwift, which is going to give you that real advantage. And this was actually beautifully demonstrated in this very first race. When you look at the rider who finished in 7th position, so this was Connor Swift, current British national champion. He put out a whopping 419 watts for his 50-minute ride. That gave him an average of 5.5 watts per kilo for the race. When you compare Connor's effort to the guys that finished in second and third, second averaged 4.6 watts per kilo and third averaged 4.9 watts per kilo. What that shows you is that it's the guys who are experienced Zwifters who know how to play the game that seem to have the upper hand, at least in these early stages. Now, Connor might have been doing more work on the front, yeah, sure, but there's still a significant difference. You know, that you're nearly talking about a kilogram difference in terms of watts per kilo between Connor in 7th and Matthew in second. And that's what virtual racing is all about. If you've ever raced on Zwift at home, more often than not, when you finish the race, you'll look at your results and you'll think, hold on a minute, I was doing way more average power than these guys who were ahead of me. And then you start thinking, oh yeah, that's probably because they drafted better, they probably knew the course better, and they were using their power-ups more effectively. That is the beauty of racing on Zwift, and that's why we love it. Now that was round 1 of the KISS Super League done, and we caught up with winner and pre-race favourite Ian Bibby after the race. How did it compare for you versus real life?
I was surprised how much it split up, to be honest. I didn't really expect it to whittle down so much. I think there was only maybe 20 left at the end. It was a hard start, the first few minutes, but I was sort of ready for that. And it probably caught a lot of people by surprise, to be honest. We were chatting on WhatsApp, me and Mouldy mainly, just recording messages, sort of, giving them a bit of advice on how it's going, and just also try and stick together at the front. And I think with Zwift, it's if a gap opens up, especially with a new double draft thing, it's once something goes, it's almost impossible. So if you sit back and it lines out, and then 10 wheels ahead a gap goes, in a road race you can maybe jump across to it, but on Zwift it seems like it's almost impossible. So the idea was let the gap open behind you, and not in front, and hopefully we'll be all right, and it sort of works out.
Yeah, and I think what was interesting was that obviously second and third were 2 of the all-star riders. How were you approaching using power-ups then, Ian? Because you used your aero boost right at the end, didn't you?
Yeah. Me and Mouldy rang all the lads and said, get on early, get one, jump on the serve, and then just don't touch it all day unless you're really, really in trouble. Because at the end you're guaranteed half the group will have them, and I guarantee all the all-stars will have had them, and it almost makes it impossible to win it if you don't have one. So we just said get one as early as you can, and as soon as you get either a feather or an aero, sounds strange saying it, but as soon as you get one of them, you need to keep it, because it's almost impossible really to beat someone with that, 'cause it's such an advantage. That was Ian, that was round 1. We also were lucky enough to be invited down to the launch event last Wednesday. That took place in London. There were lots of esteemed guests from the world of cycling. We caught up with a few of them. Here's what went down.
It's amazing. You go on Zwift, kind of in your own little space at home, but you see friends or pros, or I don't know, it brings that feeling of when you go on a club ride, that banter. I like it. It's nice.
Well, I think today we showed for the first time that we can convince professional teams to take part in a whole new platform, and we're taking real athletes and bringing them onto a digital platform. Never been done before.
I think it's amazing. I think it's going to absolutely take off, and I'm really excited about it. I think I'm about to come out of retirement for esports racing, because it's really cool. I just think Zwift is such a fantastic tool for training, and then to have racing as well. It's just such a fantastic opportunity for those people who love just racing on Zwift.
I was sitting there just super hard, on the climb, 10 minutes in. So doing about 700 watts and getting dropped.
Yeah, as you see from Bibby, he's always on it and he won tonight, so I think experience counts a lot.
Now with round 1 of the KISS Super League done, next week on Wednesday we move to Innsbruck for round 2. Again, it's going to be live streamed on Zwift, and we'll be showing it on our page, so make sure you check it out. Now, what we want to know is, what do you guys think about cycling as an esport? Is it the future, or is it just a fad that will be here today and gone tomorrow? Let us know below. We want to hear from you.